In this tutorial, we'll answer some of the most frequently asked questions for those interested in teaching IELTS for a living. The first question is, what are the benefits of teaching IELTS? IELTS test takers all have a remarkable goal: to migrate overseas for study or work, and this makes them generally well motivated and easy to teach. It may be said that IELTS preparation instructors have an easier time than their counterparts teaching young learners or busy professionals. Well-qualified IELTS teachers enjoy excellent mobility and global demand for their services, and teaching IELTS is one of the better and higher paid jobs to aim for in the wider TEFL industry. Next, so what is IELTS? IELTS is an acronym for International English Language Testing System. IELTS is designed to assess the ability of individuals who want to study or work effectively in countries where English is the language of communication. IELTS conforms to the highest international standards of language assessment and is an accredited testing system for the English capabilities of non-English speakers. IELTS is recognised for course admission by universities in many countries, including Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and some universities in the USA, and is increasingly used in Germany and wider confines of Europe. IELTS is also required as proof of language abilities for immigration to Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Is IELTS the only international English language testing system? No, it's not. There are also the American-based Test of English for International Communication and Test of English as a Foreign Language System. However, TOEFL is not accepted for Indian students wishing to enter Australia, and the American testing systems are not accepted in some universities committed only to the IELTS system. And lately, it hasn't been accepted in the UK either. There are also Pearson, PTE, and Cambridge, ESOL testing systems. But as I've mentioned earlier, IELTS is the most popular testing system used across the world, and many universities only accept IELTS. What training do I need to teach IELTS? There is no formal licence to teach IELTS, but most schools will require a minimum of a CELTA certificate. Major employers such as the British Council will often ask for a Delta or equivalent diploma, and teachers with this or postgraduate degree can expect to earn more than those without. If you want to go straight into IELTS without any background in teaching English, an intensive 1-month CELTA course is the best place to start. Most teachers, however, will gravitate towards IELTS after a variety of teaching experiences. Teaching IELTS often means teaching academic competencies, such as argument and essay construction, so a university background is an almost universal requirement. The responsibilities of an IELTS test instructor are not the same as those of a regular English teacher, and the keep them talking approach may not work so well for IELTS students. Most IELTS students have reached a level of competence in the language, so good enough for everyday situations, but not necessarily good enough for work or university level study. IELTS teachers will therefore need to use special techniques to get students to break out of the plateau stage and begin using more advanced communication strategies. So where can I teach IELTS? There are IELTS test centres in more than 130 countries, so in theory there are IELTS teaching opportunities in more than 130 countries as well. Many teaching positions are in countries such as the UK and Australia, which receive a lot of international students, though demand in these countries can be very seasonal. Year-round teaching positions can be found in most major world cities, where there should also be ample private teaching opportunities. Most IELTS instructors work for private language schools. You could set up your own small class teaching IELTS outside your main work position, and then you'd have a second income. You can also travel and work for language schools full-time in Spain, Portugal, Turkey, China, Thailand, Vietnam, India, and the Philippines. Teaching positions may also be offered at universities, often on a short-term basis. Are IELTS teachers well paid? While not exactly enjoying the lifestyles of the expatriate company transfer set, IELTS teachers should at least be able to earn an above-average income for the country in which they teach. Few, however, would choose to teach IELTS specifically for the money. For most teachers, it's a way of funding an extended stay in another country with all the cultural rewards that it can bring. Should I become an IELTS examiner? A CELTA or Delta and several hundred hours of IELTS teaching experience are often quoted as the minimum requirement to become an IELTS examiner. But the ease of becoming an examiner depends mainly on supply and demand in the country where you teach. While examiner work pays nicely, it's unlikely to lead to an increase in earnings from teaching, as qualified examiners are forbidden from advertising their examiner status in their professional lives. In some cases, no longer being active as an IELTS teacher may even strengthen an applicant's case for examiner status. Your local British Council website should tell you whether examiner training is available. Should I have my own IELTS website? To some extent, the answer comes down to your teaching situation. With a stable job in a reputable school, you can leave the marketing side of things to your employer. If you're self-employed or doing irregular teaching jobs, however, a website fulfills two important functions. It helps you get students and demonstrates your professional credentials to prospective employers.